The adjustment of the requirement in different scenario which is facing for their institutional structural, which is the regulatory and transformation, which is the defining of the association and its navigation for their institutional structural for the role and its regulatory of their transforming the institutionalization, which is the functional and its association and its navigations, which is the partially referendums, which is the inclusivity and challenges for their working capacity for their neutralization. How to different evolving and its challenges for the regulatory and transforming the structural and its resource efficiency, the procedures and its gradually transformations, which is the ideologically and it's a part of the approach. How to different referendums and its insecurity about the procedures and its institutionalization, and its referendums for their insecurity about different procedures and its efficiency. It is the regulatory and its advantage for their resources about the growth and its orientation, the socialization and its effective part of the approach. How to different social and its evolutionary for their challenges, the capacity of the requirement and thinking about the procedures and its efficiency for the regulatory and transformation for their institutionalization and its role and its regulatory of the transformations, which is the ideologically and its distinguished for their different finding and its prosperity for their institutional structural, which is the regulatory and its efficiency for their different role in its regulatory of the transforming the institutionalization. How to different navigation and systematic and its partially referendums, which is the insecurity about the procedures and its efficiency for the different regulatory and transforming the structural and its resource efficiency. It is the navigation of the society which have the different inclusivity and challenges, and the regulatory of their transformations, which is the effective for their different transforming the structural and its resources about the growth and its orientation of the social and its evolving for their different regulatory. How to different evolutionary and challenges for their capacity and its requirement for their phase and its orientation of the social and its evolutionary for the different efficiency. It is the navigation and systematic and its partially referendums, which is the inclusivity, the management of the requirement and thinking about the growth and its balance for their resource efficiency. It is the challenges and its capacity for their requirement and thinking about different growing and its influential part of the approach, and its inclusivity for their challenges, the defining and its insecurity about the procedures and its efficiency for their dynamic institutional association and its structural for their regulatory. How to different institutional association and its navigation and its partially referendums, which is the inclusivity for their challenges. It is the growing and its influential association and its navigation for their different growing and its influential part of the approach. How to different socialization and its growing and its efficiency, which is the navigation for the different dynamic institutionalization, the growing and its part of the approach and different inclusivity for their challenges, and its inclusivity for their different referendums and its insecurity, the different evolving the procedures and its growing for their influential association and its navigation for their systematic. How to different institutionalization, the procedures and its growth and its orientation of the socialization. It is the coordination and its achievements about different prosperity, the effective part of the approach. How to different effectives for their socialization and its growing for the different referendums and its insecurity about the procedures and its communication about the referendums, and how to different reality of work, different challenges and its capacity for their requirement and its prosperity for their institutional structural and its resources about the growing and its influential and its association for the different navigation and systematic way of the challenges for their capacity of the requirement, thinking about the growing and its influential part of the approach and different navigation and systematic way of the orientation of the socialization. How to different challenges and its capacity for their requirement and thinking about the procedures and its efficiency for their gracefully responsibility. When we try to approach and it's a effective for their transformation and it's a core for their evolutionary and transforming the association and its a navigation for their challenges. It is the revolutionary and it's growing for their different ecosystem of the society, which is the effective for their transformations. The growing and its influential association and its navigation for their systematic, and it's a partially referendums for their insecurity about different procedures, and it's all about the different referendums and its insecurity. It is the navigation in systematic and its partially referendums, which is the inclusivity for their challenges. How to different role and its regulatory for their efficiency. The growth and its challenges for their defining association and its navigation for their systematic and its ideologically, which is the execution of work, implementation of the different ecosystem of the intrusive of the working and its capacity for their requirement, thinking about their gradual responsibility and its ideologically for their different association and its navigation for their different associated and its institutionalization. It is the navigation in systematic way of the challenges, which is the capacity and it's all about their procedures, and how to navigation for their systematic and its partially referendums, which is the inclusivity for their challenges and its insecurity about different role and its regulatory for their challenges for their capacity requirement, and thinking about different growth and its orientation of the socialization. How to different challenges and its navigation in systematic and its partially referendums for their different ecosystem of the society, and it's growing and it's a part of the approach, and it's inclusivity for their challenges, the capacity of the requirement, and thinking about the process of the working and its phase for their orientation of the social, and it's evolving for their scope and its orientation of the socialization. It is the growing and its influential association and its navigation for their systematic and its orientation of the social and its evolutionary for their challenges. The different capacity of the requirement, how to different challenges and its core values and systematic, which is the partially growing and its influential structure. It is the resource and its growing for their different relentless structural and its resources about different procedures, which is the defining and its association, which is the navigation and its part of the approach, which is the institutionalization, which is the growing and its structural for their prosperity and its institutionalization. It is the navigation and its prosperity for their institutional association and its challenges for their capacity and its requirement, the phase and its orientation of the different challenges and its institutionalization for their prosperity, how to different occupations of the socialization and its gracefully transforming the association and its navigation for their systematic and it's part of the approach, which is the inclusivity for their challenges, the different capacity of the requirement, and its inclusivity for the different regulatory and transformations for their challenges, and its capacity for their different intrusive and its balance for their different requirement, and its phase orientation of the society. It is the working and its capacity for their different challenges and its capacity for their requirement, which is the inclusivity for the different regulatory and the transformations, which is the different security about the procedures and its influential structural. It is the growth and its orientation, which is coming throughout your mindset when you are revolutionizing the mindset, and it's मैं भी मोटिवेशनल स्पीकर बन गया यार, ऐसा नहीं करना यार। मोटिवेशनल भाषण हमको अच्छा नहीं लगता है। मोटिवेशन इज जस्ट लाइक ए किलिंग ऑफ योर प्रॉपर वे ऑफ डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ योर बॉडी। मोटिवेशन वो चिंगारी है जो एक झटके में तुमको तबाह कर देगी, इसीलिए मोटिवेशन पे ज़्यादा मैं ध्यान नहीं देता हूँ। ओके, इट इज़ द challenges for the different regulatory, how to different growing and its influence you, the balance of the capacity of the requirement and its phase for their orientation of the socialization, which is the influential and its association for their different navigation, which is the growing and its influential part of the approach, how to different challenges and its capacity for their different intrusive and its working capacity. It is the phase and its orientation for the different navigation and systematic way of the challenges, which is the capacity of the requirement and its phase and its orientation of the social and its evolutionary for the different way and its challenges for their capacity and its navigation for their systematic and its partially referendums, which is the insecurity about the procedures and its efficiency. It is the working and its capacity for their challenges, which is the defining association and its navigation, which is the partially referendums, which is the inclusivity when you are determining yourself to working basically according to your systematic working and the different scope of working which is happening in different way of the geopolitical tension, conflicts in your minds and conflicts in your society, but you are determining for the working capacity and its requirement which is facing for the different working, and it's a balance for their capacity requirement which is the phase and its orientation which is the navigation and systematic which is the partially referendums, and insecurity about the role in its referendums for their defining association. It is the capacity for their requirement, and it's a phase for their orientation of the socialization which is the effective part of the approach, and different growing and its influential structural and its efficiency for their challenges. How to different navigation in systematic and its partially way and challenges for their capacity and its requirement for the different phenomena of the structural which is the role and its regulatory for their efficiency, and dynamic institutional association in its navigations which is the different role and its challenges for their capacity. It is the balance of the regulatory and transformations for their institutional association, navigation in systematic way of the growth and its orientation of the social and its evolutionary. We had just tried to influence in different category of the peoples when they are dissociate each others, and the phasing of their defining and its significance for their challenges, how to different navigation and its partially and its growing for their influential association, the challenges of the capacity and its requirement for their phase and its orientation for their social and its evolutionary for their working capacity, the different orientation of the social and its evolutionary for their challenges and its capacity for their requirement, and its phase and its orientation for their social and its orientation for their socialization which is the efficiency and dynamic institutional association, and its structural for the different hoping and systematic, and its partially referendums which is the inclusivity and challenges which is the navigation and its part of the approach, and how to different growing and its influential association navigation and its political disputes and its geopolitical tension like the Israel and Iran conflicts and many of more which is associated, and it's a conflicts emerging in different scenario like the COVID-19 and the Ukraine and Russia war which is happening throughout the 4 years and 4 and 5 years, and it is basically for the transformation for the different humanitarian journey, and its balance for the different working for their defining, how to different working and its phase for their orientation determining for their different basically of the challenges for their capacity and its orientation, the different growing and its balance for their capacity and its requirement for the phase and its orientation of the socialization which is the growth and its balance for their different navigation and systematic, and its partially referendums which is the insecurity about different phase and its balance for their capacity. It is the balance for their regulatory and challenges for their capacity which is the inclusivity and working capacity for their neutral efficiency. It is the balance for their capacity which is the requirement and its phase for their orientation of the social and its evolutionary for their challenges, and its capacity for their requirement and its phase and its orientation for the different efficiency which is the working and its institutional association. It is the balance for their challenges and it's working for their social and its evolutionary for their different beginning of the society which is the institutionalization and its challenges for their different capacity of the requirement, and its phase and its orientation of the social and its evolutionary for their different distinguished, and its working capacity for their neutral efficiency. It is the challenges for their different neutral efficiency which is the regulatory and transformations for their institutionalization, how to different working capacity for their neutral efficiency which is the hoping and systematic, and its partially referendums which is the inclusivity, and the challenges for their capacity of the requirement, and its phase and its orientation which is coming throughout your inner conscience, emancipation of the different role in its regulatory which is the institutionalization, and it's a part of the approach, and how to navigation for the different institutional structural which is the scope and its efficiency for their challenges which is the capacity of the requirement. It is the challenges for their capacity of the requirement which is the facing and its orientation for the different navigation, and systematic which is the partially and its role and its regulatory for the different institutional association and its navigation for their different growth and its orientation of the socialization. How to different phase and its orientation, it depends on your mean inner conscience, and it's a phase for their orientation which is the evolutionary and its growth. How to different challenges for their efficiency and it's growing for their influential association and its navigation.